Hi all, let's do a group of 3 high quality rated puzzles. This is at Play Rated Puzzles of chessmold.net, which is my own server. This one's got a low rating. Let's skip this actually, just in case. Actually it was 2 people that gave that low rating. Let's just skip that. Alright, here's a bit better. Alright, so black to play. Black to play. Okay, intuitively, black's king doesn't seem to be that well. It's not that insecure. White's king, intuitively, there's a few pieces which can have pot shots at the king. Bishop's holding the rook. The rooks can double, which is great force on G file. There's also potential, I think. These weakened light squares. We've got a light square bishop. Visually, intuitively, we've got this bishop without a counterpart. We can try and celebrate bishops without counterparts. That's one major thing. Tactically, just intuitively, without any reference to any specific moves, that can give us the gist of where we can prioritize our forcing moves and other resources, finding resources. But I think based on the bishop and rook, the bishop without the counterpart is a major theme for me tactically to consider. So something like bishop f3 is a quiet move, but it would seal the exit square. So that's interesting to think about bishop f3. Because I think the threat then would be rook h2. But other forcing moves, rook g1, rook g8 is not really threatening that much, is it? There's no bishop b5 check threatening because the knight takes b5. Actually, the bishop's hitting the rook here. Let's have a look at the forcing move. Rook f2, bishop f2. So a lot of forcing moves are ruled out. Rook h2, we can lose the rook and use our trump card bishop with bishop f3 to seal the exit square. We've also got this exit square already covered. So I think actually rook h2 is a very interesting forcing move with the idea of bishop f3. And in fact, intuitively, if you don't look at the bishop without the counterpart first, I think it's very hard for humans to be this accurate. We have to use the force, Star Wars speak. We have to use the force. The force is what we sense are potential, just visually, tactical vulnerabilities or trump cards. See it here, this is literally a trump card because black has got this light square bishop, which white hasn't. So sealing exit squares, visually we can see one exit square is taken and potentially we can take this one. So if we just have a check there added to that, that would be mate. So I believe it's rook h2, bishop takes, bishop f3, sealing the exits. King g1, rook h1 mate. I think that's pretty convincing. Rook h2, bishop g3, let's have a quick look at that. So not taking the rook. Well, I think check, king e2, there might be in that position a forcing move bishop f3 to win this rook. So I believe I'm going to kick off with rook h2. Right, and I'm going to seal the exit square. Yeah. Okay, I'm happy with that one. Kosteniuk, this is a great attacking player and former world women's champion. Okay, let's go on to another one with a reasonable rating. Actually, let's just skip without looking too much at these low ones. Sorry about this. I might do an extra auto skip for ones which this is good. 3 out of 5. So white play here. Visually, yeah, we've got a passed pawn trump card, which we want to try and liberate queen. So it's maybe, the case of unblockading just visually, without even too much reference for any candidate moves. Total detachment, in fact, from concrete stuff. What does the force say? Tactical vulnerabilities, trump cards. Our trump cards, our opponent's tactical vulnerabilities, or where they meet together, that intersection. But here, it's the passed pawn's our trump card. The opponent's already pacified because of that pawn. We've got a potential back row issue to factor in our back row visually is weak. We don't really want to waste time here if we can do something tactically and get away with it. I believe that helps prioritise forcing moves actually again. We can lift the blockade with a forcing move, queen takes, and I think we can play rook b8 there. Because if takes, then actually black's got a weak back row as well. It'll be mate. Let's have a look at this. Rook b8. If rook c8, rook takes c8. So yeah, I think queen takes d8 is pretty clear cut, actually. It's a check, limiting the opponent's replies here at the concrete level. So we want to use our intuition at the more abstract level, but if we have to do concrete work, we have to cheat. Not cheat with an engine, no, but cheat by looking at prioritizing those moves which we don't have too many options for the opponent, even if they're outrageous. But our intuition has previously guided us, to say that the pass pawn's really strong here. Got to lift the blockade. Part of the fun of having pass pawns is lifting blockades tactically. So here it's an exercise in lifting a blockade of a really strong pass pawn. So I think queen takes d8. But let's just check this a bit more. I don't think there's too much actually to check. It's very, very clear cut. Rook b8. I don't think there's any real way of defending the queen there. The queen is pinned to the king, so there's no queen d7, right? There's no time for rook c1. We just take it's checkmate. I think I'm going to go for this. And it's a pretty clear cut one. Okay. It's a nice one. I think I'm going to give it a who was that? Lilienthal. Okay, I'm going to give it a solid 8. It's cute. It's cute. It's clear cut. Okay, the actual overall average rating, even though someone didn't like it, was actually okay. So I'm going to give this the benefit of the doubt. White's play, this actually looks as though it's from a Kasparov game. It reminds me, maybe not quite. Okay, so White's play here. The king, okay, visually, the king is clearly exposed. It's like, can we create a mating net around the black king? What sort of things would help that to seal off exit squares rapidly? Bishop g5. King takes. Let's have a look at bishop g5 as a forcing move. So going on to forcing moves now. Bishop g5 brings the king up one square. Rook e5 check. Now if king f6, that's interesting. King f6, it gets a bit tricky. If rook f5 there, king e6, queen f7, I don't think we're getting anywhere too quickly. Let's go the other way around. Bishop g5, king takes, rook e5, king f6, queen f5. Could that be with queen g4 after king g7? Queen g4, that might be dangerous. Because then I think if the king goes there, then we got rook h5. So bishop g5, actually, let's look at this again. What I'm saying is bishop g5, rook e5, king f6, queen f5. The king goes back over there. And what we have got in that position with the rook here and the queen here is queen g4 check, which means if the king steps over here, we've got rook h5 mating. If the king steps back over here, rook e6, queen g6. I can't completely see it. I'm going to take this very slowly now. Bishop g5. Try and visualization exercise as well. King takes, rook e5 check. Now if king f4, queen f5 is mate. If king f6, I'm thinking queen f5, king g7, and all is not lost there because we have queen g4 check. That might be stronger, but let's imagine queen g4, king f6. What about queen g5 check there? King there. I don't want the king wriggling out. This gets really, really tricky. Queen g4, king f6. Rook e6, king f7, queen f5 check. Yeah, I think we're wrapping the show up with queen f5 check there, king there. Yeah, I think it's rolling over the king. I think it starts off with bishop g5. Right, rook e5 is not the correct move. I've gone wrong here. I've gone wrong. Oh, no. Actually, it's a case here visually. You can get the opposition. Again, the opposition is another concept. It's without reference. It's a concept you can grab hold of without reference to actually concretes. But the opposition, if you think about when you have the opposition, you are naturally taking out a lot of escape squares. And I think we can get an opposition with Queen G7, just in principle. And that cuts off so many escape squares. And it holds E5 as well. So King F5, Rook E5, King F4, Queen G... Queen G7, King F5, Rook E5, King F4. There is G3 check there, King F3, Rook E3, maybe. Yeah, I think the opposition concept, that's another... I don't know how... I think that's something to recognise just intuitively, that if you play such a check, it's like, king. You imagine in endgames where you're mating. It's really a great way of mating as well. The opposition, Queen G7. Yeah, let's have a look at the continuation then. Let's actually analyse it out. First of all, the game it came from, Nick the Fermion. Okay, so let's have a look. So very, very neat. The opposition is so powerful here. It just takes away so many escape squares. Now, king here, I think we play this. And then there is mate. Or, if here, we just take. So the critical one, it simplifies a lot what's going on here dramatically, doesn't it? So here, I think check. Now, although we haven't got Queen G5, I believe we have G3 check simply. The king's going on to the pawns. And here, I think we have Rook E3. So that's much more convincing than what I was going on about. I wasn't making use of any, without making use of any opposition here. Let's have a look. Did this actually do anything, what I was mentioning? Check. Check. I was vaguely convinced that this was a route to mating, but it's more complicated. It's far more complicated. The king doesn't go on these squares. Now E6, sorry, F7, F6, F8. Now here, check, check, check. Check. It is mating. On F7, it seems potentially right. On F6, again, we get this kind of lawnmower thing going, where I think we are mating. Maybe it is a mate, but it's just much longer to achieve than the game continuation. If we go to F8, let's try F8. Now this one's, I think, becomes tricky because there's Bishop F6. So there's no need to make it so complicated. The beautiful power of opposition cannot be underestimated. King can potentially flee. So let's look. Why is the opposition so powerful again? Can we get this in our heads? Why this is so powerful? Queen G7. I think it's how many escape squares all at once is taken from the king. The king is like a slow queen in a way, but the queen is taking 3 escape squares all at once. It's scooping up 3 escape squares. That opposition principle. There's quite a lot of escape squares with just one move. If we look at what I was mentioning, the queen is only taking, well, it's kind of taking 3 escape squares. It's kind of taking 1, 2. Yeah, Okay, so rook e5 looks tempting. Okay, but it's maybe I'm making more of it than I should. But yeah, this is so clear cut here. I think the other point is the king's not going back in. Another more fundamental point: the king's not going back. It's been drawn down the board with that queen g7. I think that's the key point. The actual direction of the king, it's going south. Like a game can go south, if you'll that expression. It's actually going south. Yeah, the other way. It's going into its own position. So if it's going back into its own position, the king is going back into its own territory. Yeah. So by retreating back in its own territory, then the defensive resource can be brought to bear. So yeah, there's a big difference. It's about these potential, I suppose, unlocking these potential resources. If the king's going back onto its own resources, then the resources can sometimes help. If the king's actually been literally drawn up into our own position, then these are just pure spectators. Then there's going to be no bishop intervention. So yeah, the notion of intervention, resource intervention again. So if you can attack without any resource intervention, and one way, when you bring the king down the board, I guess that's removing any resource intervention. I guess that's a principle to bear in mind. You don't want, you want these like statues, like frozen statues, just spectating the events, not actually getting involved. So the king drawing down the board, it's so much clearer. But anyway, just see if there's any patterns we can recognise maybe for the future. We want to try and draw the king down. That is a lot of the classic immortal games. They draw the king down the board for good reason. Maybe it reduces this intervention, defensive resource intervention. Okay, anyway, comments, questions, likes, appreciated. Thanks very much. Oh, yeah, we said the game. Thanks.